card.
Yeah.
When you say that, the witness in that particular issue, I think it was Ibrahim Amazu, says that they had no evidence to link Saraki to that account. So when we look at the
and this was a case that was investigated.
When you look at the nitty-gritty when you look at the details of the trial, there's nothing upon which you want to establish his guilt. There's simply none. If you now look at it, I've heard Mr. Obla, Mr. Obono Obla, Okoye Obono Obla. I was here with him on the show.
One of the editions that would discuss
say,
the
how nonsensical these judgments are nonsensical, and there will be appeal. Having read this judgment, this judgment will be upheld at the Court of Appeal. This judgment will be upheld at the Supreme Court, simply because the prosecution, as in several other cases that it is doing, that this government is handling at the moment, is showing a staggering amount of ineptitude, incompetence. And when you see these kind of things, it now begs the question: are these charges only being brought to harass political enemies? Because the fundamental ingredients which are required to establish guilt simply do not exist.
The way I see all of this is this is just one too many, where the prosecution of anti-corruption cases or corruption cases has suffered a lot of mishandling. It's like in most of the corruption charges, the prosecution's belief is that the burden of proof is on the accused person. They are no longer called accused person, on the defendant.
Yes.
But that's not what the law is. The burden of proof in any criminal charge is on the prosecution to establish the guilt of the accused.
Absolutely.
But that's not what we see in court.
Absolutely.
It's like the change, the attempt is to change that maxim that you are guilty, go to court, come and establish your innocence.
All right. There's some people that are saying that the anti-corruption fight is suffering some challenges because corruption is fighting back. Now, my colleague here would...
Is it a consequence of corruption fighting back?
No, that's
prosecuting corruption
I'm coming there. Now, people are saying corruption is fighting back, but my colleague and I would agree that based on the current state of our laws, it's quite difficult to establish, to prosecute, it's more difficult to establish a case against a defendant beyond all reasonable doubts than being on the defense side of the divide. Why? Because our laws, vis-a-vis the kind of the high level of corrupt practices that we have today, do not tally. Our laws is slow in response to things like electronic evidence, wire transfer, recorded messages, all those things that are being used today in advanced countries.
Yeah, crime has gone high.
Yes, while our laws
exactly.
So we are living in a situation where we have a 21st century crime syndicate, and then we are pursuing them with an 18th century set of laws.
Yeah,
so
but who do you blame for that?
Exactly. Now that's what we've had from 1999. From 1999, we've had a National Assembly. It took a long time before the Evidence Act was even taken a step further to be reviewed in 2004. So it behoves on the National Assembly, first of all, to look at our laws critically and see how they can review them in line with today's reality. And also the executive, through the office of the Attorney General or the presidency, should also initiate bills that would be able to change our fundamental practice of criminal prosecution before we can have any headway. So beyond people saying that what we have today are media trials, and if there are times it could be frustrating on the part of the prosecution where you know that you have evidence to establish a prima facie case against an individual, but the laws would not allow you to. Some of those evidences cannot be admitted in court.
Yeah, but in this case of Saraki,
now
the prosecution has not even demonstrated
now,
it has the evidence.
I want to look at the.
If you are calling somebody from the bank, if you are calling somebody from the bank to come and prove that this man made so transactions and there's no evidence of those transactions,
at the beginning of Saraki,
and you ask him and he tells you all those documents have been burnt.
At the beginning of Saraki's case, you made allusions to the fact that there was some political undertones. I don't want to assume that the timeline between the start of that case
was enough to
and
burn those
and
documents.
at the time which the judgment was passed, that so many other things didn't happen behind the scene that probably must have influenced the outcome of the, I won't make allusions to it, but I won't also go with the fact that some people are calling it a travesty of justice. No, I'm just saying that maybe there were some political undertones. There are some things that would have happened that maybe would have slowed down some form of
Isn't that where you need like, to borrow the expression of former President Obasanjo, isn't that where you need Ogbonge lawyer? Ogbologbo lawyer.
No, but you see, the last time I was here, we had a discussion about the budgeting and funding of the EFCC and our prosecutorial and investigation agencies. I remember saying here that the EFCC has spent almost 10 times more on office buildings than it has on legal services. In the last 2 years.
In personnel.
It has spent more.
This is scratching the surface. We are scratching the surface.
EFCC has spent somewhere around.
Yeah, I mean, but it's crucial. How do you prosecute? How do you prosecute an accused person? And that accused person was not cautioned, and he didn't volunteer a statement that you will bring to court that I caution this accused person. He volunteered a statement in English or in Yoruba or in whatever
language that he understands.
And this is the statement.
These are things that
Very
there were
elementary.
there were fundamental issues to this
and
matter.
In a criminal prosecution, that is the first document.
That
is the first document a prosecutor tenders.
He
the
could
statement
never
of the accused person
have been. You didn't interrogate him. You didn't invite him.
He didn't volunteer
a statement. This trial was a complete charade. It was a sham. And the people who we need to in fact get to a point we need to get to the point where people who waste government time and resources like this should be adequately punished within.
But that's where all of us should be concerned. How do we make the system work? Because the problem, the truth is that we have problems, we have challenges in the system. This morning I was reading one of the papers. I think I brought it with me, and I quickly read the story and laughed. Senate begins action on corruption. And I flipped to that page to read the story. You know what they are trying to do? They are trying to enlarge the scope of the functions of the Public Petitions Committee of the Senate. To do what? To be able to receive petitions from the members of the public on corruption. And I read the story today. I said, okay, when this committee of the Senate has received these petitions about corruption, what is he expected to do with it? To go and investigate? Is that the function of the Senate? To go and prosecute after investigating? Is that the function of the Senate?
I think there's a misplaced priority here and a disconnect between what the functions of the legislature is and what the functions of the executive is in today's Nigeria, because we already have the office of the Attorney General saddled with the responsibility of prosecution. Now,
why are we not looking at the problem?
Yes, if we really want to strengthen it, the National Assembly has powers to, I mean, people have been talking about the separation of the office of the Attorney General and that of the Minister of Justice. Yeah. That is within the confines, that is those things are within the powers to do that. Yeah. There's a way and manner they can create an independent entity to fight corruption. Don't forget that President Obasanjo, on assumption in 1999, his first steps towards anti-corruption was the introduction of 2 bills, one creating the ICPC and one creating the EFCC. Those were fundamental, and today we could see the effect of those bodies in terms of the fight towards corruption. So if you have to merge these bodies, you have to ensure that our basic ground norm, our constitution, should be tailored in such a way that the bodies responsible for the fight against corruption should be independent, so to speak. Now, for the executive, for the legislature trying to usurp some powers and go into investigation, I think it's unnecessary. I think they have powers to strengthen our constitution. I think they are the ones that are closer to the people because they represent each and every federal constituency in this country.
That's correct. All right, Pastor Ilemon, your final comment as well.
Well, for me, I believe that
there's no way you look at this Saraki case. I think the man is off the hook. Completely. If the government appeals to the Court of Appeal, two things may happen. Either either the government wins, in which case we come back to the tribunal again for the case to start again on its merit. And then, of course, when you get back to that, fresh issues will raise. Can you ask the same tribunal that has already taken a position to continue the trial on the merit? The answer, of course, will be no. If you go to the Supreme Court, the same thing will happen. I think we should just look at how to strengthen
our
the
laws.
institutions. Yes.
That we should just, again, like I've always said, we need to stop this thing where we believe that fighting an anti-corruption fight is coming out on the streets and shouting and having people arrested and arraigning and then conducting a media trial. It doesn't work. It makes absolutely no sense.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Omogbola and Bab CFR, the current democracy has been practiced in Nigeria seems to be more of a curse than blessing. What have we gained since 1999? Ademola says, CCB Act needs amendment. People can acquire crooked assets now and in the future declare it as omissions. Azuka Ikechi Harry says we should be mindful to ensure that the law isn't tinkered with for different individuals. Once that becomes norm, our judicial system dies. Amogbola again, our case in Nigeria is egregious. Every of our legal system allows for celebration of rogues and looters. We need an overhaul. Okolo Chukuneye, why can't federal government show enough commitment to fight corruption rather than just blaming the judiciary? We must fund investigation and prosecution well. Let's leave it there. Thank you, gentlemen. I've been joined in this morning's discussions by Barrister Ofonime Eno, is based here in Abuja. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And of course, Barrister Ilem Onoja, also based here in Abuja. Thank you so much. That's Focus Nigeria this morning. Thank you for investing your time with us. We'll be back tomorrow. Do keep a day with us. Enjoy the rest of the day.